Date is February 16th, 1995. My name is Arnold Goodham, and I'm interviewing Dr. Norm Brungot. And we're going to have a little chat about his veterinary years in Cobra. So, Norm, where did you grow up? Where was you born?
I was born in Berlin. Went to school in Berlin. Graduated from there. Went to University of New Hampshire for 2 years. And there I met Pete Martin, who came from Cobra. And he said he interested me in going to vet school. I said, I'm game for anything. So I finished out my pre-vet courses there, and then transferred to Cornell. I applied to every damn school there was in the country, and I got into 4 of them. But Cornell was the closest, so I went there.
That's the reason you went to Cornell, then?
Yeah. And it still is noted as one of the best.
That's what I always heard, that it was one of the best vet colleges there was.
And
so what year did you graduate from Cornell?
January 1943, as one of the war babies. We were supposed to, so in 1942 we went to school continuously. To the end of but they get us out and get us in the service. And got my time in there.
Now, did you start your practice right away?
When I got out in January, I called State and Doc Smith down in Concord and asked him if he had any idea of any jobs. And he said, yeah, we need you. Doc Swale just got burned. He can't do anything. And there's a grand opening for you. So I said, fine. I came up. I guess I called Doc once in the meantime, but all he'd tell me was, come on up. So I came up, suitcase in the hand, to the Cobra house. And who was the taxi driver then? The old fellow.
Cunningham?
Cunningham. I asked him if he'd take me over to Doc Swale's. Well, yeah. So I got in, he took me over, and I said, how much? Well, nothing. And we got the door and knocked on the door, and Doris came. She thought I was a college student selling magazines. I got into the house after a while. That's how it happened.
And that was in 43?
January.
In January, you came.
Yeah. And I stayed on through to April 26th. I went in the service.
You was drafted, probably.
No. I was in Cobra, and there was certain things going on that I might get involved in, so I thought going to war was a lot less hazardous than staying here. So I stayed up one night and wrote a 1-sentence letter. Please call me back to duty as soon as possible. And within a week I was on my way. I went to Boston, to the depot there, stayed for a month or 2, then I went to Stout Field.
And where was that?
That was Indianapolis. And that was, being in the Air Corps was beautiful.
Yeah, I would imagine.
All Air Corps people slept in on sheets.
Real sheets.
Sheets, and had a shower and regular food. And there till 1945, and I went overseas. I made a friend from Alliance, Nebraska, who went with the 20th Air Force overseas. He says, I'll have you over here. And I said, no, you won't. He did. Stayed there for Guam, Tinian, and Saipan for a year and a half. 46. And I did have the opportunity to get over to Tinian to see the Enola Gay.
No kidding.
But he did not get very close to it. There was 20 men around there with rifles.
Well protected.
And you didn't get anywhere near it. But there she sat. We didn't have any idea what it was up to. They had 3 or 4 planes that they
picked out for.
They go up, take a ride around the air, and then back down. And they'd take another one, they'd go up and ride around, and back down. But they had this bomber sitting there that they took up once in a while. And that was there for business. So they did their business.
So what did you have for a commission? What was your rank?
I got out as a major.
You did? Yeah. And you got out when?
46.
46.
Yep. I landed in Oakland Army Base in California. Took a troop train to somewhere in Massachusetts or New Jersey. 46.
Yeah.
And got out there. Called in ahead of time and says, meet me at such and such a hotel, and I'll be along. So she got there and got a room, and I got there and I asked if she was there, and they said no. So I got a room. So about 10, 11 o'clock, bellhop came in and he says, what's your problem? And I told him, well, he says, go down and see if there's any, if you've got 2 rooms. God damn, we did.
So we
had 2 rooms. And from there,
you must have got discharged from Fort Dix.
Yeah.
Were you married at the time?
Yeah. Married and had a baby.
Is that right?
At Norman.
What year did you get married?
44.
44.
She captured me.
You're lucky, aren't you? So then you came back up this way.
Yeah, I went to a convention and they offered me a job as an associate professor in Cornell. And I said, how much are you going to pay? And they said, $2,500 a year. I said, I got a wife and son to feed. There's no way that I can work for you. I would love to.
You would have liked the chance.
Yeah.
Okay.
College life is not a bad life.
No. That's my son.
Yes, you got one that's a professional. I came back up to Colebrook, moved in to Docksville to fix the apartment that's out here for me. We lived there first. So I bought the place from him. And I haven't been able to get money enough to get out of town, so I'm still here.
So you actually lived right in the same building?
Yeah, out there. Out there, you know where the office
Oh, yeah.
is?
Yeah. Because I remember you had an apartment.
Yeah, there was an apartment there. And I rented it for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Never got any rent, so I thought I could make better use of it. As an operating room.
So how many years did you work with Docksville before he retired?
I bought from him in 1948 when he built the house out on the Mohawk. And I bought his house. And I've been here ever since.
So what were some of the experiences you had in the first years of coming to Colebrook?
Oh, God.
Just
The worst experience I think I ever had was I went to see Hazy Goodrum called me. And I went out to see his horse. And I said, Hazy, that horse is lame. There isn't a thing I can do for it. Well, he said, that's all right. So I went home. 2 days later, he called. He had a cow that had prolapsed, the uterus, turned inside out. And I went out. We were working on her like crazy, and she died. And he said, well, that's all right. Another 4 or 5 months or something like that, he called me. There was a cow trying to calve. And I went out to see her, and I said, hey, she's going to die. The uterus is ruptured, and you can die of infection. The best thing you can do is butcher her. So he got Wilford Brasser to come over, and they dressed her off, and everybody had hamburger for a year or two. But it was a big, I don't know if you remember, it was a big brown Swiss. I do remember. I do remember. And after that, I had good relations with it. Everything lived from then on.
So you call that a poor start, but a...
Gee.
So...
Yeah, I've had... Of course, the first, when I first started for Doc's Whale was when what we call Bang's disease, or human medicine, is undulant fever, was rampant in the cattle. And we blood tested cattle from morning till night.
So when you actually started they started doing it in the 40s then?
Yeah.
Blood testing, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize you hit stuff.
He had just started it and got burned and couldn't do it. And Doc Lee used to come up 1 day a week and help him. Then when I came, they were after him to get these all done. Of course, in those days, there was about 20,000 head of cattle around here. Now, I guess there's probably 2,000. So we had quite a bunch to do. Had a lot to do.
And a lot of farmers lost a lot of their herd.
To clean them right out.
Yeah. I've heard, well, Leonard Gould and
Steve Frost got cleaned out. Paul Dubois got cleaned out.
What about Clement Gleason?
Clement, you used to call me 1st of October. Go up test my cattle. Okay, so we go up and test them. And Clement would lose the truckload every time I went there. And he wanted me to get his cattle tested so he can get some money for beef, and the state was paying a subsidy then. And he'd get that subsidy so he could pay his taxes. Clement was the easiest man in the world to get along with.
He was. Was those animals fit for beef, or did they?
Oh, yeah.
So they didn't actually have to slaughter them?
No. They were edible. There's nothing wrong with eating them, but they were causing abortions in the cattle themselves, and they just were not thrifted. So, but we made it. We got them cleaned up.
How long did it take to clean it up? I remember. Well, I remember working for you.
5 to 6 years.
Was that a rough government program right through?
That was a government program right to the end. The government paid me, or the state paid me, and the federal government paid the state. And you owning the cow would she'd go in for beef, and then they'd pay you so much. They'd appraise it, and you'd get the government subsidy, whatever it was. Some of them, like Clement, made money on it. He never paid anything for his cow.
True. So was it just the one test at the time, or was that the only test there was? It seemed like
we're doing TB at the same time.
TB at the same. All right, and that had to do with what? Tuberculosis. Absolute tuberculosis.
Yeah. And I found probably half a dozen cows with tuberculosis.
So that wasn't as common.
It was pretty well cleaned up by the time I got there. And I got in on the tail end of it, cleaning them up.
Now, because back then, like you said, there was a lot of cattle in this area. So you must have had other What about horses? I mean, back then, horses were a big
Back
thing.
then, it was logging. And I'm going to guess there was 1,000 horses in this area. Each logging camp had 100 horses and 100 men. One man to a horse, cutting pulp. They didn't cut logs then, they cut all pulp. And one man, one horse.
So did you actually go into those logging camps?
Oh, I used to work. Louis Rankle was the big jobber then, both here and out in Parmachine. And I'd go out, I'd go up on Friday night to the camp when they come in from work. And I'd fix the teeth on a few of them and scratches and whatnot. Then I'd stay in the camp, sleep in the camp overnight, and Saturday I'd work all day, fixing them, patching them up so they could go on Monday. And quite a time. My biggest worry was, am I going to get lousy? Well, in those days, they had a lot of, some camps had license.
Oh, yes.
And, geez, I'd come home, and off go the clothes into the washer. And
they had big logging camps. I mean, like you said, there was 100 men.
100 men.
Right in each logging camp.
Yeah. And they fed them. And the food, you can't believe.
I have heard.
Can't believe the food.
Yeah.
And you'd see one of those small lawns. They didn't weigh more than 140 pounds. Fill up a plate, dinner plate. Keep it right up. Then eat 2 or 3 pieces of pie on top of that. And tea.
Yep.
They could really eat. I don't know how they did it, but they did.
Then after the horses petered out,
But then they went to skidders, and I didn't have much to do with that.
So you really got away from the horses after that.
Then I got back just to cattle, but there was still plenty of cattle here.
Oh, yes. Because we're talking in, mid-50s?
Yeah.
When the horses finally went out of the woods.
All right.
Was it into the 60s? I was thinking of, they used to call him Roman those days. What was his name?
Grandson?
I can't remember. He was one of the last ones that had horses in the area. He sold off a lot of his equipment, and that was in the 60s, early 60s. But what about small animals at the time? Did you have much of that when you first?
When I first started, about the only thing you had was farmers spay a dog so that she'd be there when they wanted to get the cows in.
Yeah.
And people didn't pay much attention to small animals. A little, yeah. You had some.
Some, but not like it is today.
Not like it is today.
It's a big business.
It's a big business today. And if it weren't for the small animals, we wouldn't have one here. We wouldn't have a vet in town.
No, that's the truth. That keeps him busy. Now, how big an area did you have? How far did you travel to do veterinary work?
Well, of course, I went to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And down Stratford Hollow. I had an agreement with Doc Lee that I wouldn't go below Stratford Hollow, and he wouldn't come up. Then I went out to Galloway, Maine, and Upton, Maine, and Norton, Island Pond. It's fuck up.
Did you ever? I don't know if you want.
I used up a car in a year.
You did.
Yeah.
You actually went to a car, because that's a lot of money.
I had 40,000 miles a year that I was running.
How many farms, just farms themselves, would you estimate in, say, the early 50s that was in the area? I know it's a big question.
I would guess probably 500.
I think you're probably right. Because we had 3 creameries in this area at that time. And I remember when I started working down at the United Farmers there, we had 140 members ourselves. And Hood had as many, if not more. Yeah. And Whiting was still in business.
plus the ones who were peddling milk locally.
That's right.
There was a few of those, Ned Kelsey,
Gerald Young,
Young, peddled milk locally.
Bessie Eastman.
Yeah.
You had a few of them. Now, when you started working by yourself and testing there, you had quite a few people who worked with you at the time, didn't you?
Yeah, I had some good workers, some loafers.
Was it hard to break in these helpers?
I always had farm kids.
Yeah. I think Ray Placey helped you for a while.
Yeah, Ray Placey was probably the best man I ever had. No, Wilfred Kenny was.
He was. Huh?
Wilfred Kenny was. He lived here with me.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved in this part, he moved into the apartment. And they had 2 or 3 kids while they were there. I don't know how they ever stood it, but there wasn't room enough for them. But they did. And we had Lou Wallace, and I had you, and I had Marty.
Yeah. I think you had Gary Owen.
Gary Owen worked for me quite a while. No, I had good help.
Did that
had one of the Botillia boys
out on the Mohawk there?
Yeah.
At the Blakely place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did that mandatory testing stop after a while? Did the government finally give up? It isn't in effect today.
The mandatory testing went to not too many years ago.
It did.
Then when they came in with a test on the milk.
That's how it's done today then?
Yeah. They would go down to the creamery and take a sample of every man's milk and run the test on the milk. And if there was any suspicion, then they blood tested.
Then they went and
tested the herd. But even now, if you want to ship an animal in the state, you have to have the blood. You have to have the blood drawn.
You do then?
Yeah, they won't go on that herd test.
So if you was to ship cattle, are you talking anything, beef, or just dairy?
Anything. Cattle, sheep, goats.
Crossing state lines?
Yeah. Has to be blood tested. And then there's other tests to go with that, but they have to be blood tested.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was only up on the Canadian border, across the Canadian line.
No, I made papers to go to South America.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When some of these...
Well, some of Lou Wallace's. He sold some heifers that I think went to South America. They went down through Pennsylvania to South America. But we did the original
testing paperwork.
And paperwork on them up here.
I can remember sometimes. Did you have much experience with like lightning storms when you was out in the
God, yeah.
Just you lose some cattle to lightning and so forth.
Yeah, Chetnoy lost. But we lost his boy up there.
Yes, well, I do remember that.
And then later, not too long after that, he had 5 or 6 that killed standing on the stone wall. All great big heifers. And he collected, driving out key pains, and I was treating the cow for mastitis. And the damn lightning came in through the electric fence into the barn, onto the stanchion, down in the cow, into me. And all that Keith Haynes ever did was laugh like a toad, He thought it was a big joke. Scared the hell out of me.
Well, I've seen lightning come into the barn out there, and then cattle would you could just see them settle. They'd go right across the top of the...
Home and Amy, Bubba didn't kill any then. He was milking down in these lower barns.
Up to Pittsburgh.
Yep. And he got up to milk by hand. He got off the milk stool, stepped out the back of the cow, and the cow went down like that. Right behind him, there was a whole bunch of them went down. And that's when the barn burned.
Is that right?
His barn burned, not the one the cows were in,
No,
another
but the
one.
lightning hit that close. And,
Burnt the barn.
oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because I remember one night up to our place, the lightning came in and went across the pipeline.
Yeah, well, that's what it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Jumped
was
right from he had a bar, a place for a bar, post, and it came in, it jumped between the wires and then went over. Why it didn't burn the barn, I don't know.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It should have burnt the barn.
Because sometimes you'd even see, it looked like a smoke in the barn after that hit.
Well, you could smell it in that barn that day.
And brimstone smell.
He was laughing like hell, because I went tink, 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 down the floor. I'm hit.
One you didn't get really hurt out of it.
Yeah.
And did you ever find many in your travels and taking calves? Did you ever find many deformed calves?
Oh yeah.
You really did.
Yeah. The best one I think I had was up down Brooks. It's a two-headed.
Okay. I've heard of it.
Two-headed and 5 or 6 legs. But the nice thing was it came out backwards. And I didn't have to cut the head off. It squeezed them together.
Oh.
Yeah. So that
because it was dead.
it was dead, yeah. So I had them with, I had one with 2 tails. And one of them lived, I think Keith Haynes had that. It was a tail coming out of her neck.
No kidding.
It was just in the skin.
Did it live?
Oh yeah, it was milking.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Back then, what was the most common breed of cattle in this?
Oh, Holstein.
It was even back then.
Yeah.
It always had.
There was quite a few. There was a few jerseys. And Gerald Young and Ned Kelsey were the only 2 people that had Guernseys.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a breed in New Zealand, but that's right.
Yeah.
We did.
They were nice. They were nice cattle. Of course, both Ned and Gerald took care of them just like babies. Yeah.
And you even did the work for the county farm up there when they're herding.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I got busy up there quite a bit.
They had a nice herd.
They've still got it. They've got I think the second highest producing herd in the county now.
Is that right? How many, this is off the record really anyway, but how many counties that still got cattle? County farms?
3 or 4.
There still is?
Yeah. There's one that's going to sell there. We have an advantage here. We have a jail and no gymnasium to let the jailbirds play in. So we use them on the farm to get their exercise that way. And if we didn't have the farm, then we'd have to make some arrangement for them for an exercise. They can for long nature hikes.
So it has worked out in everybody's favor, really.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some that don't like it, don't believe in it, but I do. I'm not doing the work now, so
no.
But I do. I still believe in it. I don't know what to do with those prisoners up there.
Do you think the farm has a chance of staying with the people that are running the county? Are they against it?
No, they're not. Our delegation is pretty reasonable about that.
They've got a good herdsman up there.
Yeah. Ivan Giroux's son. Norman.
Yeah. I haven't been in for a while, but I always was amazed when walking. It was nice and clean, and the cattle looked nice. It was a real pleasure to see our county farm run.
Well, they've got them now so that I think they're all registered.
Is that right?
They're all registered Holsteins in there now, so that it's a valuable herd.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to sell it, I don't know what you'd get for it. You wouldn't get anywhere near what they were.
No.
Because
how big a herd do they run for? About the same as the yours did, I'm sure.
They milk about 75 and then cut about 150 head.
That's the trend today up in this area, isn't it? Big farms, but few.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah. Is that the only way it operates, probably?
It's the only way you can stay alive.
Because you can almost count the farms on your hand. Your fingers.
And the one, and they work, they operate two ways. Either they don't raise anything, they buy everything. Or if they raise them, it takes about half and half. You're raising them. It takes 25% of your herd every year for replacement.
Right, I see.
You can skim it down any way you want, but if you've got 100 head, 100 milkers, you'll be trading in 25 of them every year.
Easy.
Broken legs, mastitis, poor breathing, old age.
How many years have you been in the veterinary business?
Since 1943.
And do you consider yourself, you're still in it? Or do you,
No.
When did you retire from it? About what year?
Last January 1st.
Officially.
Yep. Well, I had to get my license. In order to get my license, I had to go to college, continued education.
So you felt that it wasn't worth, I'm sure.
$500-600 for that. Cost me $100 for the state, and $100 something to belong to the association, and another $100 to belong to the New England Association. I said, hey, I'm working for somebody else, not me. And I was getting old enough to quit anyway.
How old are you now?
75.
And you, of course your wife has passed away, but you were married and had how many children?
5.
What were their names?
Norman, Stephen, Randall, Jane, and Eric.
And none of them cared about the
No.
veterinary business? Didn't want nothing to do with it? They didn't need, did they ever help you much?
Oh, they used to help me out here.
In the office, though.
Yeah. I went up Miles Jeffers once with Normie, and delivered a calf. The calf was dead. So Miles got his hoe out, lifted up the scuttle, and jammed the calf down under the barn. Normie looked at that calf for never said a word. Must have been 2 weeks later we went up there, and I delivered another calf. It was alive. Normie looked at him and he said, Daddy, you're not going to put him down to the whole life.
I can imagine it. Crossed his mind. So you could call it a good life and you wouldn't change it?
I wouldn't give up living in Colebrook for anything. When you think of bringing 5 kids up in the city.
You probably could have made more money.
Oh, I'd make a lot more money.
But yeah, the people, the environment.
But I've had the opportunity to do whatever I wanted. I bought the camp at Back Lake for, in those days, I paid $4,000 for it. And if you bought it anywhere else, you'd pay $50,000 and you couldn't afford it. I brought up my 5 kids at the camp. I fished every goddamn lake, pond, lake, and whatever's in the country, and I've hunted over some of it, good share of it.
Who are some of your hunting buddies?
Well, Lawrence Kelsey was my first one, because he has a farm up there. And I've hunted some with Duke.
You fish more with him, probably.
Yeah, hunted with Jack Covey and Ernie Covey.
Took your share of deer, did you?
Yeah, I got my share. But 10 years ago, if I'd never got another one, I'd have to share. Well, it seems I used to go to a farm in Columbia and sit with another fellow who's around here and watch under it on this farm's apple trees.
Yep, sure did.
Yep.
No, it's a pretty good country, but it's glad to live in.
Well, Knoxville told me when I first came here, he says, you'll never get rich in Colbert, but you'll always make a living. And that's just the way it's been.
That was a pretty good philosophy.
He was not. The only way Doc Swale made any money was in land transactions. Well, those are kind of out.
You must have found, because I know that you went no matter what, it wasn't matter, nobody ever, whether they had a bill or not, that you must have had a lot of people that owed you money, but you still kept them.
Oh, yeah.
But did you find most of the farmers?
Most of the farmers, maybe they couldn't pay while they were gone, but when they sold out, they'd come in, they'd pay the bill.
Is that a fact? Isn't that?
Now, I've got a few that moved in here from somewhere else, I don't know, to start up farming. And they were only here a few years, and they left me with a pretty good bill.
Yeah.
But the people who were born and brought up here always paid the bill.
You actually must have seen different generations. I mean, you worked for old Lou Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
And young Lou.
Yeah, I worked for old Ed Day.
Did you? Out on the Mohawk?
Oh, no, yeah. Went in to see him one morning, and I said, good morning, Mr. Day. Young fella, my name's Ed. Don't forget it. Lou Wallace was about the same.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine.
How's he doing? Well, he's pretty quiet. He didn't say much. Ned Kelsey?
I would imagine Ned probably spoke up.
Yeah, he could speak up.
Sealing Hart probably could too.
Well, Sealing did. I was just telling Sylvia, I used to fight with him all the time. But it was in such a way that nobody really got mad.
Remember, I think one of the worst herds that we ever tested that I was with you was up to on Hospital Road there now. That farm.
Ray Hicks.
I'll never
forget. They were big and they were ugly.
Weren't they wild?
They were mean.
Yeah, literally mean.
Yeah. You never helped me do Everett Wizzle.
No, I didn't.
But Everett Wizzle had big Holstein cows, and he had the old-fashioned wooden stanchions. And they'd get in that, and they'd start shaking their heads. And boy, you had to. They never got away from you in those stanchions. No. You had to fight to get them. And they knew just as soon as we came in the barn what we were going to do.
Yep. I can remember up the farm, that whole herd would be laying down. You walk into that barn, and they were right under their feet.
Yep.
They could smell you. And they knew what was coming.
They knew my voice.
Yeah.
I think that was the way.
Probably it was.
If I could go in the barn and not say a word.
Yeah, I can remember that all the time. That whole herd would be just as kind. He'd walk into that barn, and they right onto their feet. And they weren't, Brown Swiss are not
They weren't mean. They were
very docile, but they knew.
But they knew when I came in the door.
Yeah. But I remember that time up there. Wow. That was
I guess I was fortunate. Kelsey Knapp had a farm out on Weed Road. And he had 150, 200 head. Some in the barn, some under the barn, some around the barn, some outdoors. And they tell me those things were just as mean as you never. Kelsey had every hired man there was in the country. And they kept the cattle stirred up. So that I remember Doc Swale telling me once when we rode out by there, he says, we gotta go test them someday. But in the meantime, I went in the service and When I come back, the barn was burned and cattle were gone.
Yeah, that's right, they were.
Yep.
That burnt in 1945. I remember that.
I guess they were burying cattle for quite a while.
Yep, quite a few animals. Yeah. Remember that night Charlie Hoyt's barn burnt?
Yeah.
Boy, there was a lot of cattle in that barn that night.
Of course, then, by that time, the bulldozers had been developed.
Yeah. But boy, did that smell.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate, in this area that we haven't lost more herds and fires.
Yep.
You hear it on the television. We have lost a few. Kelsey Nance was one of the first big ones. Well, Ralph Hammond owned the farm at the time.
Yeah, but there's another one up there where Lenny Gould lived. There's Ponzi Gould, I think, owned it.
Oh.
And I think that place burned.
And livestock.
Yeah. I don't really like that thing. That was burned while I was gone.
Oh. And the others, I remember because I was working at the Hermitage when young Charlie Hoyt was. And that was a herd of jerseys.
Yep.
Yep. And that barn burnt fire. I remember him going up that night to open that door to get in the horse barn, and the handle on that barn door was so hot. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't lift it. It was that bad. Well, I guess we've covered about everything, Norm. It really has been a pleasure.
There's lots of it.
Lots of other stories.
Other stories I shouldn't tell.
Hey, share a couple with us.
Well, the only way that you can remember these stories is that something along like this, something will come up. You remember something that went along with it.
That's right. I know it. You don't seem to think of the stories when you start out, but when you get young, you remember.
Well, I remember going out. You know Monty Goodrum?
I wish he was still here.
Yes, I do too. But
he farmed for a while.
Yeah, it's quite a while. It seems though he used to. What did he do? He ran up one side of the car and down the back side while his brother was in the car parking.
We won't put those stories out.
But on out to Monty's, he had a cow trying to calf. It had a big. They had bred some of their cows with these red Holsteins, and calf was just big. They couldn't get in. Even he came out hard, and they were all pulling. Sandra was right there, and she was working just as hard as anybody. And I was at the final, got it out as far as the shoulders, and then there's just brute force and ignorance. And everybody was pulling, and I was watching. And as I stood there, the calf's heart came out through the hole in the chest. And it squeezed the heart, so the heart popped out in the gutter. Well, I picked the heart up and looked at it, make sure it was the heart. And there was Sandra pumping on him, giving him artificial respiration, trying to bring him back to life. And finally I said, Sandra, I think you might as well give up unless you get this thing back into him.
I remember my brother telling that story.
Yeah. Sandra was put out that she lost that calf.
Because they were trying to create a red Holstein herd.
Get some red and white Holstein.
Yeah. The original color.
Yeah.
I remember.
And this was, it was a nice calf.
Yeah.
And it was a big calf. There was no reason why it wouldn't have lived if that heart hadn't popped out on the. It popped right out in the gutter, and I reached over and picked it up. Sandra was working on that calf to eat hell, and I said, Sandra, we could do something more than just that. We're going to get that thing to live. And then I went out to Bobby Keyser a couple of years ago. I had a cow trying to calf. And I checked it all open, and I said, the calf is alive. There's a little hole in the uterus. And the only way we can get that out is cesarean. And I said, I've never done a cesarean. But I said, I'll try. And Bill says, I guess we can try. So I went down, got duped, did all my instruments, went back out. We started in about 1 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, we were finished. The cow was on her feet. And we were sound tired. Well, Bill says, I guess probably we ought to do something for that. He went into the house and came out with a half-gallon of Canadian Club. I think Bill had maybe one drink.
I would say probably that's all.
You know, one sip. Duke and I had all we could carry.
That reminds me of this.
But he kept that cow for 2 or 3 years. Never bred her. He never bred her back.
Is that right?
I told him not to.
Yeah.
So the uterus has been weak at this. They tell me that the uterus gets stronger where they sew it up, but I was not willing to take that chance. So I guess she milked for about 3 years. Kicked like a goddamn. Every time I went near her, she'd start kicking.
You must have got kicked a few times.
Yeah.
I remember a place down in Stratford. It seems like it was beside the farm right near the mill houses down there.
Harold Ramsey.
Harold Ramsey. We went in there one day, and he had one of those tracks with those manure carriers on it, and there was a cow that kicked that, and you took it and put that in front of you. I think we were blood testing. Oh, she kicked it. And you put that tub in front of you, and you reached across. And, some of the tricks we did. Remember the time we went down to Clement Live down in Stratford, and we dehorned those cattle, and we worked all day. And Bruce was still alive.
Bruce, I took a bottle along, and I put it in the middle of the floor between the cows. Now, Bruce, I said, when we get done on that side, you can have a drink. And, oh, geez, Bruce worked.
He did.
He worked like a...
Them horns were so big.
Yeah.
He was on, we took off, but he was on one side of that bar, and I was on the other. I mean, we were talking horns that...
Just like iron pipe.
Yeah, they were. It was just like cutting an iron pipe.
And...
Bleed. We were all covered with blood that day.
Bruce had a couple, 2 or 3 drinks. I said, that's it. Now we get to the other side. when we get done that side, we all had a drink.
Yeah.
And Bruce finished it.
Yeah. Boy, that was a day. Oh, I never.
But then Clement went and sold a whole goddamn bunch of cows right after that. So.
Is that right?
And got in some more with horns.
Yeah. It was an endless. But boy, that was a day when they were forcing me to go through.
They shut it off.
Date is February 16th, 1995. My name is Arnold Goodrum. I'm interviewing Dr. Norm Brungot, and we're going to have a little chat about his veterinary years in Colbert. So, Norm, where did you grow up? I was born
in Berlin. School in Berlin. Graduated from there. Went to University of New Hampshire for 2 years.
2 years.
And there I met Pete Martin, who came from Colbert. And he said, he interested me in going to vet school. I said, I'm game for anything. So I finished out my 2 vet courses there. And then transferred to Cornell. I applied to every damn school there was in the country. And I got in before. But Cornell was the closest, so I went there.
That's the reason you went to Cornell?
Yeah. And it still is noted as one of the best.
That's what I always heard, that was one of the best vet colleges it was.
And
so what year did you graduate from Cornell?
January 1943, as one of the war babies. We were supposed to, so in 1942, we went to school continuously. The end that they get us out and get us in service. And got my time in there.
Now, did you start your practice right away?
when I got out in January, I called stating to have Doc Smith down in Concord and asked him if he had any idea of any jobs. And he said, yeah, we need you. Doc Trail just got burned. He can't do anything. And there's a grand opening for you. So, fine. I came up. I guess I called Doc once in the meantime. All he'd tell me was, come on up. So I came up, suitcase in the hand, to the Cobra House. And who was the taxi driver then? The old fellow.
Cunningham?
Cunningham. I asked him if he'd take me over Doc Trail. Well, yeah. So I got in, he took me over, and I said, how much? Well, nothing. And we got the door and knocked on the door, and Doris came. She thought I was a college student selling magazines. I got into the house after a while. That's all it happened.
And that was in
January.
In January.
Yeah. And I stayed on through to April 26th. I went in service.
You was drafted, probably.
No. I was in Cobra, and there was certain things going on that I might get involved in, so I thought going to war was a lot less hazardous than staying here. So I stayed up one night and wrote a one-sentence letter. Please call me back to duty as soon as possible. And within a week, I was on my way. I went to Boston, to the depot there, stayed for a month or two, and I went to South Field.
And where was that?
Indianapolis. And being in the Air Corps was, was beautiful.
Yeah, I was there.
All Air Corps people slept in real sheets. Sheets and had a shower and regular food. And there for 1945, and I went overseas. I made a friend from Alliance, Nebraska, who went with the 20th Air Force overseas. He says, I'll have you over here. And I said, no, you won't. He did. Stayed there for Guam, Tinian, and Saipan for a year and a half. 46. And I did have the opportunity to get over to Tinian to see the Enola Gay.
No kidding.
But you did not get very close to it. There were 20 men around there with rifles. And you didn't get anywhere near her. But there she sat. We didn't have any idea what it was about. They had 3 or 4 planes that they picked up. They go up, take a ride around the air, and back down. And then you'd take another one, they'd go up and ride around, and back down. But they had this bomber sitting there that they took up once in a while. That was there for business. So they did their business.
So what did you have for a commission? What was your rank?
I was going to get out as a major.
You did. And you got out when?
46. I landed in Oakland Army Base in California. Took a troop train to somewhere in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, New Jersey. 46. And got out there. Called in ahead of time and said, meet me at such and such a hotel, and I'll be along. So she got there and got a room, and I got there and I asked if she was there, and they said no. So I got a room. So about 10, 11 o'clock, bellhop came in and he says, "What's your problem?" And I told him. Well, he says, "Go down and see if there's any, if you've got 2 rooms." God damn, she did. So we got 2 rooms. And from there,
you must have got discharged from Fort Dix.
Yeah.
Were you married at the time?
Yeah. Married and had a baby.
Is that right?
At Norman.
What year did you get married?
44. She captured me.
You're lucky one. So then you came back up this way.
Yeah, I went to a convention, and they offered me a job as associate professor in Cornell. And I said, "How much are you going to pay?" And they said, $2,500 a year. I said, "I got a wife and son, Steve. There's no way that I can work for you. I'm not to."
You would have liked the chance.
Yeah. College life is not a bad life.
No. That's my son.
Yes, you got one that's a professional. I came back up to Brungot, moved into Docksville, fixed the apartment that's out here for me. He lived there. So I bought the place from him. And I haven't been able to get money enough to get out of town, so I'm still here.
So you actually lived right in the same building?
Yeah. Out there. Okay, you know what the office?
Oh, yeah. I remember you had an apartment.
Yeah, there's an apartment there. And I rented it for a few years. Never got any rent, so I thought I could make better use of it. As an operating room.
So how many years did you work with Docksville before he retired?
I bought from him in 1948 when we built the house out on the Mohawk. And I bought his house. And I didn't have it.
So what were some of the experiences you had in the first years of coming over?
Oh, God.
Just
The worst experience I think I ever had was I went to see Hazy Goodrum called me. And I went out to see his horse. And I said, "Hazy, that horse is lame. There isn't a thing I can do for it." "Oh," said, "that's all right." So I went home. 2 days later, he called. He had a cow that had prolapsed, the uterus, turned inside out. And I went out. We were working on her like crazy, and she died. And he said, "Well, that's all right." Another 4 or 5 months or something like that, he called me. There was a cow trying to calve. And I went out to see her, and I said, "Hazy, she's going to die. The uterus is ruptured, and you can die of infection. The best thing you can do is butcher her." So we got a group of grafted to come over, and they dressed her off, and everybody had hamburgers for a year or 2. But it was a big, great big, I don't know if you remember, it was a big brown Swiss. And after that, I had good relations with her. Everything lived from then on.
So you call that a poor start, but a
Gee.
So
I've had, was the first, when I first started for Docksville was when, what we call Bang's disease, or human medicine, is unguent fever, was rampant in cattle. And we blood tested cattle from morning to night.
So when you actually started they started doing it in the 40s then?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it had started.
He had just started it and got burned and couldn't do it. And Dr. Lee used to come up 1 day a week and help him. Then when I came, they were after him to get these all done. Of course, in those days, there was about 20,000 head of cattle around here. Now I guess it's probably 2,000. So we had quite a things to do. A lot to do.
And a lot of farmers lost a lot of their herd.
They cleaned them right out.
I've heard, well, Leonard Wu and
Steve Frost got cleaned out. All the boys got cleaned out.
What about Clement Gleason?
Clement, you call me 1st of October. Go up test my cattle. Okay, so we go up and test them. And Clement would lose the truckload every time I went there. And he wanted me to finish cattle tested so he can get some money for beef, and the state was paying a subsidy then. And he'd get that subsidy so he could pay his taxes. Clement was the easiest man in the world to get along with.
He was. Was those animals fit to beef?
Yeah.
So they didn't actually have to slaughter them?
No. They were edible. There's nothing wrong with eating them, but they causing abortions in the cattle themselves, and they just were not flipped. So, but we made it. We got rid of it, getting cleaned up.
How long did it take to clean it up? I remember. I remember working for you.
5 to 6 years.
Was that a rough government program right through?
That was a government program right to the end. The government paid me, or the state paid me, and the federal government paid the state. And you owning the cow would take the sheep, go in for beef, and then they'd pay you so much. They'd appraise it, and you'd get the government subsidy, whatever it was. Some of them, like Clement, made money on it. We never paid anything for the cow.
True. So was it just the one test at the time, or was it that the only test there was? Or was it? It seemed like it was.
We were doing TB at the same time.
TB. All right, and that had to do with what? Tuberculosis. Absolute tuberculosis.
And I found probably half a dozen cows with tuberculosis.
So that wasn't as common.
It was pretty well cleaned up by the time I got there. And I got in on the tail end of it, cleaning them up.
Now, because back then, like you said, there was a lot of cattle in this area. So you must have had other. What about horses? I mean, back then, horses were.
Back then, it was logging. And I'm going to guess there was 1,000 horses in this area. Each logging camp had 100 horses and 100 men. One man to a horse, cutting pulp. They didn't cut logs then, they cut all pulp. And one man, one horse.
So did you actually go to those logging camps?
Oh, I used to work. Louis Ranko was the big jobber then, both here and out in Parmachine. And I'd go out, I'd go up on Friday night to the camp, when they come in from work. And I'd fix the teeth on a few of them, and scratches and whatnot. Then I'd stay in the camp, sleep in the camp overnight, and Saturday I'd work all day, fixing them, patching them up so they could go on Monday. And quite a time. My biggest worry was, am I going to get lousy? Well, in those days, they had a lot of, some camps had license.
Oh, yeah.
And, geez, I'd come home, and off go the clothes into the washer. And
they had big logging camps. I mean, like you said, there was 100 men.
100 men.
Right in
each logging camp. And they fed them. And the food, you can't believe.
I have heard.
Can't believe the food. And you see one of those small lawns, they didn't weigh more than 140 pounds. Fill up a plate, dinner plate. Keep it right up. Then eat 2 or 3 pieces of pie on top of that. and tea.
Yep.
They could really eat. I don't know how they did it, but they did.
Then after the horses petered out, they can.
Well, but then they went to skidders, and I didn't have much to do with that.
So you really got away from the horses. Yeah.
Then I got back just to cattle, but there was still plenty of cattle here. Man.
Oh, yeah. Because we're talking in, what, mid-50s?
Yeah.
When the horses finally went out of the road. Was it into the 60s? I was thinking that I used to call Roman names there. He was one of the last ones that had horses in there. He sold off a lot of his equipment. That was in the 60s, early 60s. What about small animals at the time? Did you have much of that when you first?
When I first started, about the only thing you had was spay a dog so that she'd be there when they wanted to get the cows in. And well, people didn't pay much attention to small animals. A little, yeah. You had some,
but not like it is today.
Not like it is today.
It's a big business.
It's a big business today. And if it weren't for the small animals, we wouldn't have one. We wouldn't have a vet in town.
No, that's the truth. That keeps him busy. Now, how big an area did you have? How far did you travel to do veterinary work?
Of course, I went to Pittsburgh. Yeah. And down Stratford Hollow. I had an agreement with Doc Lee that I wouldn't go below Stratford Hollow, and he'd come up. Then I went out to Galloway, Maine, and Upton, Maine, and Norton, Island Pond.
Did you ever? I don't know if you want.
I used up a car in a year.
You did.
Yeah.
You actually went to the car. Because that's a lot of money.
I had 40,000 miles a year that I was running.
How many farms, just farms themselves, would you estimate in, say, the early 50s that was in the area? I know it's a big question.
I would guess probably 500.
I think you're probably right. Because we had 3 creameries in this area at that time. And I remember when I started working down at the United Farmers there, we had 140 members ourselves. And Hood had as many, if not more.
Yeah.
And Whiting's was still in business.
Plus the ones who were peddling milk locally.
That's right.
There was a few of those, Ned Kelsey.
Gerald
Young, peddled milk locally.
Bessie Eastman,
yeah.
You had a few of them. Now, when you started working by yourself and testing there, you had quite a few people who worked with you at the time, didn't you?
Yeah, I had some good workers, some loafers.
Was it hard to break in these helpers?
I always had farm kids.
Yeah. I think Ray Placey helped you for a while.
Yeah, Ray Placey was probably the best man I ever had. No, Wilfred Kenny was.
He was.
Wilfred Kenny was. He lived here with me.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved in this time, he moved into the apartment. And they had 2, 3 kids while I was there. I don't know how they ever stood it. There wasn't room enough for them. But they did. And I had Lou Wallace. I had you and Marty.
Yeah. I think you had Gary Owen.
Gary Owen worked for me quite a while. No, I had good help.
Did that
had one of the Bookillia boys
out on the Mohawk there?
Yeah.
It's the place.
Yeah.
So did that mandatory testing stop after a while? Did the government finally give up? It isn't in effect today.
The mandatory testing went to not too many years ago.
It did.
Then when they came in with the test on the milk.
That's how it's done today?
Yeah. They would go down to the creamery and take a sample of every man's milk and run the test on the milk. And if there was any suspicion, then they blood tested. Tested her. But even now, if you want to ship an animal in the States, you have to have the blood. You have to have the blood drawn.
You do then?
Yeah, they won't go on that herd test.
So if you was to ship cat, are you talking anything, beef, or just dairy?
Anything.
Anything.
Cattle, sheep, goat.
Crossing state line?
Yeah. Has to be blood test. And then there's other tests to go with that. And then have to be blood tested.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was only up on the Canadian border, across the Canadian line.
No, I made papers to go to South America.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When some of these...
Well, some of Blue Wallace's, we sold some heifers with, I think, went to South America. They went down through Pennsylvania to South America. But we did the original
testing paperwork.
And paperwork on it, yeah.
I can remember sometimes. Did you have much experience with like lightning storms and moved up and fires?
Yeah.
Just you lose some cattle to lightning.
Yeah, Chet Noyes lost. But you know, he lost his boy up there.
Yes, well, I do remember.
And then later, not too long after that, he had 5 or 6 that killed standing on the stone wall. All great big heifers. But I went out to treat pain, and I was treating the cow for mastitis. And the damn lightning came in through the electric fence into the barn, onto the stanchion, down in the cow, into me. And all that Keith Haynes ever did was laugh like a toad, you know. He thought it was a big joke. Scared the hell out of me.
Well, I've seen lightning come into the barn out there, and then cattle would just, you could just see them settle. They'd go right across the top of the
home. And Amy, well, they didn't kill anything. He was milking down in these lower barns.
Up to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And he got up and milked by hand. He got off the milk stool, stepped out and back the cow, and the cow went down like that. Right behind him, there was a whole bunch of them went down. And that's when the barn burned.
Is that right?
The barn burned, not the one the cows burned.
No, but the lightning hit that close.
Yeah. Right behind.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because I remember one night up to our place, the lightning came in and went across the pipeline.
Yeah, well, that's what it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was right from he had a box, a spacer box, on the post, and it came in, it jumped between the wires and then went over. Why it didn't burn the barn, I don't know.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It should have burned the barn.
Because sometimes you'd even see, it looked like a smoke in the barn.
Yeah. Well, you could smell it in that barn that day.
Brimstone smell.
He was laughing like hell. I said, I went tink, 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 tink down the floor. Got hit.
Well, you didn't get really hurt on it.
Yeah.
And did you ever find many in your travels and taking cats? Did you ever find many deformed cats?
Oh yeah.
You really did.
Yeah. The best one I think I had was up to Allen Brooks. It's the two-headed. Okay. Two-headed and 5 or 6 legs. But the nice thing was it came out backwards. And I didn't have to cut the head off. It squeezed them together. So that
it was dead.
It was dead, yeah. I've had them with, had one with 2 tails. And one of them was lived, I think Keith Haynes had that. With a tail coming out of the neck.
No kidding.
It was just in skin. But
did it live?
Oh, yeah. He was milking.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Back then, what was the most common breed of cattle?
Oh,
it was even back then.
Yeah.
You know,
there was quite a few. There was a few jerseys. And Garrel Young and Ned Kelsey were the only two people that had Guernsey.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a breed in the that's right.
And they were nice. They were nice cattle. But both Ned and Garrel took care of them just like babies. Yeah.
And you even did the work for the county farm up there when they heard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I got busy up there quite a bit.
They had a nice one.
They've still got it. They've got I think the second highest producing herd in the county now.
Yeah. How many, this is off the record really anyway, but how many counties that still got county farms?
3 or 4.
There still is?
Yeah. There's one that's going to sell there. We have an advantage here. We have a jail and no gymnasium to let the jailbirds play in. So we use them on the farm to get their exercise that way. And if we didn't have a farm, then we'd have to make some arrangement for them for an exercise. They can prolong nature hikes.
So it has worked out in everybody's favor. Really.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some that don't like it, don't believe in it, but I do. I'm not doing the work now, so, but I still believe in it. I don't know what to do with those prisoners up there.
Do you think the farm has a chance of staying with the people that are running the county? Are they against it?
No, they're not. Our delegation is pretty reasonable about that.
They've got a good herd in there.
Yeah. Ivan Giroux.
No. I haven't been in for a while, but I always was amazed and what it was nice and clean, and the cattle look a real pleasure to see our county farm run.
Now they've got them now so that I think they're all registered.
Is that right?
All registered hostings in there now, so that it's a valuable herd. If you went to sell it, I don't know what you'd get for it. You wouldn't get anywhere near what they were. No. Because
how big a herd do they run for? About the same as the years.
They milk about 75, and they've got about 150 head.
That's the trend today up this area. Is big farms.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah. Is that the only way it operates?
The only way you can stay alive.
Because you can almost count the farms on your hand.
And they work. They operate 2 ways. Either they don't raise anything, they buy everything, or if they raise them, it takes about half and half. You're raising them. It takes 25% of your herd every year for replacement.
Right. I see.
You can skim it down any way you want. But if you've got 100 head, 100 milkers, you'll be trading in 25 milkers every year.
Easy.
Broken legs, mastitis, poor breathing, old age.
How many years have you been in the veterinary?
Since 1943.
And do you consider yourself, you're still in it?
No.
When did you retire? About what?
Last January 1st.
Officially.
Yeah. Well, I had to get my license. In order to get my license, I had to go to college, continue education.
So you felt that it wasn't worth, I'm sure.
$500-600 for that. Cost me $100 for the state, and $100 and something to belong to the association, and another $100 to belong to the New England Association. I said, hey, I'm working for somebody else, not me. And I was getting old enough to quit anyway.
How old are you now?
75.
And your wife just passed away, but you were married and had how many children?
5.
What were their names?
Norman, Stephen, Randall, Jane, and Eric.
And none of them cared about
No.
their business. Didn't want nothing to do with it. They didn't need, did they ever help you much?
Oh, they used to help me out here.
In the office then?
Yeah. I went up Miles Jeffers once with Normie and delivered a cat. The cat was dead. So Miles got his hoe out, lifted up the scuttle, and down went the cat down under the barn. Normie looked. Normie looked at that cat. Well, never said a word. It must have been 2 weeks later we went up there and I delivered another cat. He was alive. Normie looked at him and said, Daddy, you're not going to put him down to the whole life.
I can imagine that cost his life. So you could call it a good life and you wouldn't change it.
I wouldn't give up living in Cobra for anything. And you think of bringing 5 kids up in the city.
You probably could have made more money.
Oh, I'd make a lot more money.
But yeah, the people, environment.
But I've had the opportunity to do whatever I wanted. I bought the camp at Back Lake for, in those days, I paid $4,000 for it. If you bought it anywhere else, you paid $50,000 and you couldn't afford it. I brought up my 5 kids at the camp. I fished every goddamn pond, lake, and whatever's in the country, and I've hunted over some of it, good share of it.
Who are some of your hunting buddies?
Well, Lawrence Kelsey was my first one, because he has a farm up there. And I've hunted some with Duke.
You fish more with him, probably.
Yeah, hunted with Jack Covey and Ernie Covey.
Did you share a deer, did you?
Yeah, I got my share, but I had it 10 years ago. If I'd never got another one, I'd take a share. Well, it seems I used to go to the farm in Columbia and sit with another fellow who lives around here and watch under it on this farm's apple trees.
Yep, sure did.
Yeah.
No, it's a pretty good country to scratch a living.
Well, Doc Swale told me when I first came here, he says, you'll never get rich in Cobra, but you'll always make a living. And that's just the way it's been.
That was a pretty good philosophy.
He was not. The only way Doc Swale made any money was in land transactions. Well, those are kind of out.
You must have found, because I know that you went no matter what, it wasn't matter, no matter whether they had a bill or not, that you must have had a lot of people that owed you money, but still different.
Oh, yeah.
But did you find most of the farmers?
Most of the farmers, maybe they couldn't pay while they were gone, but when they sold out, they'd come in, they'd pay the bill.
Is that a fact?
Now, I've got a few that moved in here from somewhere else, I don't know, to start up farming. And they were only here a few years, and they left me with a pretty good bill.
Yeah.
But the people who were born and brought up here always paid the bill.
You actually must have seen different generations. I mean, you worked for old Lou Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
And young Lou.
Yeah, I worked for old Ed Day.
Did you? Out on the Mohawk?
Oh, no, yeah. Went in to see him one morning, I said, good morning, Mr. Day. Young fella, my name's Ed. Don't forget it. Lou Wallace was about the same.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
He's a good one. Well, he's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
He didn't say much. Ned Kelsey.
I would imagine Ned probably spoke out.
Yep. He can speak that.
Seal and Hart probably did too.
Well, Sheeran did. I was telling Sylvia. I was fighting with him all the time. But it was in such a way that nobody would really get mad.
Remember, I think one of the worst herds that we ever tested that I was with you was up to on Hospital Road there now. That farm.
Ray hit.
I'll never
They
forget.
were big and they were ugly.
Weren't they wild?
They were mean.
Yep, literally mean.
Yep. You never helped me do Everett Whistle.
No.
But Everett Whistle had big Holstein cows, and he had the old-fashioned wooden stanchion.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd get in that and they'd start shaking their heads. And boy, you had to. They never got away from you in those stanchions.
No.
You had to fight to get them. And they knew just as soon as we get in the barn what we were going to do.
Yep. I can remember up the barn, that whole herd would be laying down. You walk into that barn, and they were right under their feet.
Yep.
They could smell you. And they knew what was coming.
They knew my voice.
Yeah.
I think that was the way.
Probably it was.
If I could go in the barn and not say a word.
Yep. I can remember that one time. That whole herd would be just a time. He walked into that barn, and they were right under their feet. And they weren't brown Swiss are not
They weren't mean. They were
very docile, but they knew.
But they knew when I came in the door.
Yeah. But I remember that time up there. Wow, that was.
I guess I was fortunate. Kelsey Knapp had a farm out on Weed Road, and he had 150, 200 head. Some in the barn, some on the barn, some around the barn, some outdoors. And they tell me those things were just as mean as you never. Kelsey had every hired man there was in the country, and they were not. They kept the cattle stirred up. So I remember Doc Swale telling me once when we rode out by there, he says, we gotta go test them someday. But in the meantime, I went in the service, and when I come back, the barn was burned and cattle were gone.
Yeah, that's right, they were.
Yep.
That burnt in 1945. I remember that.
I guess they were burying cattle for quite a while.
Yeah, quite a few animals. Yeah. Remember that night Callie Hoyt's barn burned?
Yeah.
Boy, there was a lot of cattle in that barn that night.
Of course, then, by that time, the bulldozer had been developed.
Yeah. Boy, did that smell.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate, in this area that we haven't lost more herds of fires. You hear it on the country. We have lost a few. Kelsey Nance was one of the first big ones. Well, Ralph Hammond owned the farm at the time.
Yeah, but there's another one up there where Lenny Gould lives. It's Ponzi Gould, I think, on it.
Oh.
And I think that place burned.
And white stuff.
Yeah. I don't really like that thing. That was burning a lot of time.
Oh. And the others, like, I remember because I was working at the Hermit time when young Charlie Hoyt came on. And that was a herd of jerseys.
Yep.
Yep. That farm. I remember him going up that night and that road, but he didn't talk about it. And the handle on that farm go hot. Well, I guess we've covered that. Hey, share a couple with us.
Well, the only way that you can remember these stories holding along like that, something will come up. Remember something that went along with it.
Okay. I know it. You don't seem to think of the stories when you start at the home.
Well, I remember going out. You know Monty Goodrum?
I wish he was still here.
Yes, I do too. But
he farmed for a while.
Yeah, quite a while. Seems though he used to what did he do? He ran up one side of the car and down the back side while his brother was in the car parking.
We won't put those stories out.
But on out to Monty's, he had a cow trying to calf. Had a big, they had bred some of their cows with these red Holsteins. And calf was this big. We couldn't get him. He came out hard. And they were all pulling. Sandra was right there. And she was working just as hard as anybody. And I was at the final, got it out as far as the shoulders, and then was just brute force and ignorance. And everybody was pulling, and I was watching. And as I stood there, the calf's heart came out through the hole in the chest, and squeezed the heart, so the heart popped out in the gutter. Well, I picked the heart up and looked at it, make sure it was the heart, and there was Sandra pumping on him, giving him artificial respiration, trying to bring him back to life. And finally I said, Sandra, I think you might as well give up unless you get this thing back into it.
You remember your brother telling that?
Yeah. And Sandra was put out that she lost that calf.
Because they were trying to create a red Holstein.
Get some red and white Holstein.
The original color.
Yeah.
I remember.
And this was, it was a nice calf.
Yeah.
And it was a big calf. There's no reason why it wouldn't have lived if that heart hadn't popped out on the. It popped right out in the gutter, and I reached over and picked it up. Sandra was working on that calf to eat hell, and I said, Sandra, we could do something more than just that. We're going to get that thing to live. And then I went out to Bobby Keezer a couple of years ago. I had a cow trying to calf. And I checked it all open, and I said, the calf is alive. There's a little hole in the uterus. The only way we can get that out is cesarean. And I said, I've never done a cesarean. But I said, I'll try. And Bill says, I'll get this try. So I went down, got Duke, got all my instruments, went back out. We got in about 1 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, we were finished. The cow was on her feet. And we were sometimes. Well, Bill said, I guess probably I ought to do something for that. He went into the house and came out with a half-gallon of Canadian Club. I think Bill had maybe one drink.
I would say probably that's all.
One sip. Duke and I had all that we could carry.
That reminds me of this.
But he kept that cow for 2 or 3 years. Never bred her. He never bred her back.
Is that right?
That's all not.
Yeah.
The uterus is a weed. They tell me that the uterus gets stronger where they sew it out, but I was not willing to take that chance. Sure. So I guess she milked for about 3 years. Kicked like a goddamn. Every time I went near her, she'd start kicking.
You must have got kicked a few times.
Yeah.
I remember a place down in Stratford. It seems like it was beside the pond right near the mill house.
Harold Ramsey.
Harold Ramsey. We went in there one day, and he had one of those tracks with those carriers, manure carriers on it, and there was a cow that kicked that. And you took it and put that in front of you. I think we were blood taking. Oh, she kicked it. And you put that cup in front of you, and you reached across.
Yeah.
Some of the tricks we did. Remember the time we went down to down in Stratford, and we dehorned those cattle, and we worked all day. Bruce was still alive.
Bruce, I took a bottle along, and I put it in the middle of the floor between the cows. Now, Bruce, I said, when we get done on that side, you can have a drink. And, Bruce worked.
He did.
He worked like a...
Them horns were so big.
Yeah.
He was on, we took off, but he was on one side of the bar, and I was on the other. I mean, we were talking horns that.
Just like iron pipe.
Yeah, they were. It was just like cutting an iron pipe.
And
bleed. We were all covered with blood that day.
Bruce had a couple, 2 or 3 drinks. I said, that's it. Now we just do the other side. Well, when we get done that side, we all had a drink.
Yeah.
And Bruce finished it.
Yeah. Boy, that was a day. Oh, I never.
But then Clement went and sold a whole goddamn bunch of cows right after that. So
Is that right?
you got in some more with home.
Yeah. It was an endless. Before that was the days when they were forcing the country.